All right. Hey, writers, this is Lee Jessup, career coach for emerging and professional screenwriters, as well as business of screenwriting professor with the David Lynch grad program for cinematic studies. Say that fast 3 times. Coming at you with another installment of the Rep Files with my friend Krista Sipp. Hi, Krista.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I've
Yeah.
had the privilege of knowing you for a good number of years
Yeah.
and following your career, but everybody who's watching may not have. So tell us a little
Yeah.
about yourself.
So I guess I'll start at the beginning. I grew up in Connecticut, not having much of a knowledge of the business at all. Like I grew up thinking you're either a director or an actor and that's it. And then somehow movies end up on our screen, and I benefited and watched them obsessively. And so I came out here right after graduating school, and my very first like assistant job was at a management company, and that was kind of my grad school and my trial by fire era. And from there, I just tried out almost every job in this industry. And after a few years of kind of trying on different things, I realized I do miss working with people who create story. And so in 2017, I started my own management company with a friend of mine, and called First Friday Entertainment. And we were just a boutique management company with an eye towards closing the inclusion gap in Hollywood. And then in 2022, Heroes and Villains Entertainment acquired us. And so I've been here managing ever since. I rep mostly screenwriters and directors for both film and TV, some IP, like comic books, books, short stories. Like I said, we as a company, we rep storytellers of all stripes. And knowing in our shifting industry, everything changes at a dime, but we will always need some kind of storyteller involved. So,
Love that.
mhm.
Um, for those of you who are, for those viewers who are not familiar as much with what a manager does versus what an agent does, how do you explain your job?
Yeah, I think our as a manager, well, first of all, I always call myself like a professional fangirl. One of our partners calls us professional best friends, but the idea is we come and help develop your career from the very start to finish. I think an agent's job really is to get you a job, and a manager's job is to strategize with you, to help you get your material in a row, help you start to form relationships so that when that job does come up, people already know who you are, helps you plan what you want, helps you pick one job or the other, helps you build your team out in terms of agents and attorneys. So it's very much like a more holistic strategy thing. My clients text me all the time. We hang out, like we just really work in a level that is very kind of intimate, right? Like we develop material together from the story aspect, and we kind of work to make a full-on career from start to finish.
I love that. And when do you think is the right time to bring on an agent?
Oh, an agent. These days when you're when you're making money, like when you're booking jobs, I think just by nature of what agents do, they sell, and it's hard to sell something that's not heated up yet or not really kind of making waves. So usually my clients get their agents once they've had a job or two under their belt and kind of proven that they are someone marketable, and an agent can use that to help build on, job wise. But generally, an agent is not the first member of your team. It's usually an attorney or a manager.
Yeah, so I'm a big manager first believer.
Hmm.
When do you think a writer is ready for a manager?
It's such like a nebulous thing. There's all kinds of places, but I would say in terms of like a new writer looking for a manager, you have an idea of kind of where your material stands. Sometimes you've placed in a few contests, or you've had some good feedback from executives. You start to, I don't know, I will say, like, I as a manager should not be the first person to ever read your material. Like you shouldn't just write a script for the first time and then send it to a manager. That's not the right time. But I would say, you've written a few things, other people have read it, your peers have read it, and you kind of have an idea of like what you want your future to look like. You've thought about what your goals are in terms of your career. You have an idea of how a manager could be helpful to you. So there's like a few different things, but I think you'll start to notice like people will start to ask if you're repped. I guess there's some kind of like tip-offs or people start say, "Oh, I want to send this to my friend." Like that's probably a good place. But yeah, like it shouldn't be like right at the very, very, very beginning, but I would say early on in your career when it starts to feel like you're starting to get a little bit of momentum that you need help managing.
And when you consider writers, I know you're approached regularly by
Mhm.
clients who have friends, by
Yeah.
executives who have recommendations, by people who reach out to you cold. What excites you about a writer and makes you go, I want to read this person, and even more, I want to work with this person?
Honestly, for me, it's their story. Like, usually the first thing I'll look at is their bio. Like, I'm very curious. Like, I don't engage with a client for just like one project, right? It like the whole idea is someone that's you're going to work with for the entire of the career. So I'm so curious as to like what your background is, what you bring to the table, what types of stories you like to tell. Like that is actually one of my first things of like, oh, what have they done? What they want to do? And then I'll like look at the log line and it's probably reversed for most people, like what's the log line and then who is this person? But for me, especially lately, it's been really like, who is this person? And do they seem like an interesting storyteller or someone who would be interesting to work with? And then of course I'll check out the script.
I know a lot of writers are concerned with writing in the right genre or what the market is looking for. Are there genres specifically that you read more of, or do you really not care? Do you feel like you're genre agnostic?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
For me, I think chasing a mandate or chasing a genre is a recipe for always being behind the ball. I think you should do what you do well, and then you're going to find there's so many people in this industry that do so many different things. So you're going to find the right person for that. For me personally, my tastes skew very like poppy, very entertainment forward, a lot of sugar with the medicine kind of things in terms of like a message. I don't know. I work a good amount now in kind of like the comedy space, the rom-com space. I personally am looking for more soapier writing clients who can do really great character driven, where the character really drives the story. Um, I mean, I rep clients of every genre. I have horror writers, and that's a perennial, genre. Yeah, I would say I rep most everything, and I'm into most everything, but my tastes tend to be very poppy, like very pop and entertainment forward, I would say.
Now, what can a writer do beyond tell their own story?
Mhm.
Knowing that that's kind of like number one on the list. What else can a writer do to impress you?
They can be well read and well watched. Um, if something comes out that you're into, try to get like scripts are online these days, or you have friends who can kind of pass things along. So like read what you can in terms of stuff that you like or the types of stuff that you want to do. Watch as much as you can. One of the questions that always comes up during like meetings is like, what are you watching right now, or what are you liking right now? And then I would say work on your network. I think the like you said earlier, the writers that I tend to prioritize are the ones that have been referred to me over someone who cold queries me just because I have limited time. I don't have like a Beyonce day. I have a regular 24 hours. And um, so I tend to prioritize stuff that comes to me through my relationships. And so I would say just work on building your network. And if you write something fantastic, people will pass along your stuff because we all love to share what we love. And so I would say just work on meeting people. And this looks like going to grab a coffee with someone, asking for a 10-minute Zoom with someone. Um, just something very like kind of low committal in terms of like, don't show up and be like, hey, will you read my script? But just say like, hey, how is the stuff going for you? Oh, this is what I'm up to, and then in like normal conversation, it'll come up. People be interested in what you're doing. So I would say those are the top few things you can be doing aside from writing as much as you can.
Now, the flip side of that is what can or has a writer done before to make you go, nope, not a fit. What are those things that really turn you off in a writer?
Um, Lack of boundaries. I've gotten like texts to my personal cell phone, emails to my personal email. That freaks me out. So I actually end up blocking those people just because it just screams lack of boundaries and lack of safety. So that's probably the number one, like kind of practical thing. But I don't know, people who don't really treat this as a business or an industry, people who think it's so easy to just sell something and don't realize kind of the work, people who think once they get a rep, their job is done. And like the rep will do everything for your career from here on out. I want like the idea is that we're partnered together and we both put in kind of a similar level of work. Um, and people who just don't know, who don't have a good idea of what they want out of their career, what they want their career to look like. There are some people who are fortunate and have gotten a couple jobs and just kind of coast, but don't really have a ton of ambition, which is fine, but it's like, what do you need me for, right? You can keep your 10% to yourself if you've gotten yourself to where you need to be and don't want to go anywhere else. So I think a clear idea, and this can always change. Like you could try something out and decide you don't like it after all. Um, but I like at the end of the day, it's your career, and I'd like to be with people who have some kind of ownership over what they do and what they want to do and some kind of ambition. So I would say those are some of my bigger turnoffs.
And what is the balance when you work with a writer, you develop a script? How do you develop with writers? Is somebody ever right? Is somebody ever wrong? How do you find that balance where both you and the writer are satisfied with the development process?
That's a good question.
One that we're all trying to crack, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess to this goes back to the previous question, but there has to be a good level of trust in the relationship. So it's like if I'm giving you a note, there's a trust that it's coming from a place of I know what's working in the industry as someone who's outside of the story. I have these kind of thoughts about it. So there has to be a level of trust. There are times where my note just doesn't hit where the client wants to be, and that's fine, and that's a fight that I won't have, because at the end of the day, it's like it has to represent you well, what you take out. Um, so there is kind of a trade-off. There'll be times where I notice over the course of several pieces of material where we're just not aligned, and that's a question of are we aligned in terms of taste or vision? Are we a right fit? So like if it happens over and over and over, then we have to look at the larger relationship, like any relationship. But but in terms of like if it's like a one-time kind of thing, it's like we can kind of talk about what feels good. But I hope there is a level of like I said, of trust that I'm not going to steer you wrong, that I do have your vision and your what you want to say at heart, and the notes come from a place of I want this to be successful, especially at a time when people want stuff that's ready to go, right? There's not a like we're not in a culture right now or a time right now where people say, "Oh, I really like the script. I have this one note I want to change to give them this note and then we'll buy it." Like that doesn't exist anymore. So things have to be like you have to send it to an exec and they have to feel like this is perfect, ready to go. Of course, they're going to give notes, but for the most part, they're going to feel like they can't feel like it's a heavy lift for them. So it's really like my the back and forth and my giving notes and doing all this is really out of a desire for you to not hit that wall.
Now, here's a scenario that I'm wondering about. If you're developing with a writer and the writer feels this is it, this is the draft, but you feel the script is not ready, have you
Mm-hmm.
ever taken out something that you felt wasn't quite there yet, but the writer was really eager to go out with it? Or do you refrain from that? How do you make that judgment? How do you make that decision?
I'll say that I have in the past. Um, I don't think I would again. Only because, not only because, but mainly because, I represent my writers, but my writers also represent me. And so I have to put out stuff that I feel good in because as a manager, my reputation is everything, right? And so if I send someone not only not only something that is not ready, but that I know is not ready, like, do you think that exec is going to ever call me back or ever give me a real read for my other clients or for the same client in the future? Like that, like everything has to kind of benefit like what I'm building um as a career, not just for myself, but for my clients. Like I talked to an exec earlier today and she was like, look, I asked my friends straight up when they sent me a spec, like, do you believe in this? Do you think this is ready to go? Because she's like, I'm one of two people in this department and I don't have the time to 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 do this, right? Um so I think now these days I'm definitely a bit more honest and like willing to push back or just say this is not something I feel like I can take out. And sometimes the client can make a decision based on that, right? Like I think that's very reasonable for them to have their own response. But I've like over the years I've come to realize just how valuable reputation is in terms of like what I send and what's worth people's time to look at and what I can kind of stand up behind.
I get that 100%.
Mhm.
So when a script goes out, I know everybody would love to sell their work and have it set up immediately. But what is a realistic expectation for a writer when a script goes out there? What should they hope for? Understanding that, selling something is a bit of a catching
Mhm.
lightning in a bottle.
For my like more like early career writers, I always say a good goalpost is for people to know you exist. For as many people who work in the genre or the space or whatever that you work in to know you exist. So if I take out a script and say it's a pass, and then but you get like 10 generals out of it. That's 10 more people who know you on a level that didn't before. And 10 more people who can think of you when something changes. Like I've had instances in the past where we've sent a script somewhere, someone passed on it because they had something else similar. That thing fell through and they came back for that script. So not every upfront pass is like a failure. But like I said, like a lot of my job is to help you build those relationships that will be fruitful in the future. And so I think a really, really good goal is for people to know you. And then beyond that, of course, you would love to get producers attached. You would like to get interest from, you know, directors. You would like to get interest from other producers or showrunners, interest from networks. Like that is all like the big goal. But I would say you're still successful if you take out a script and a bunch of producers not only know you, but are excited to read the next thing that you send out.
Yeah, listen, I think that's a great barometer for success. Now, how much should a writer be producing? I know that different people have different ideas about how
Mhm.
much and how often and how much you need new material. What's your take on it?
I hate setting like a number to these things, but you should have like a running slate in your head, right? Like a list of things that you want to do because A, people are going to ask you in your meetings what you're doing, but also it's like you've put your pen down on one thing, you got to keep going. Like you have to like so some people say like 2 scripts a year. I have clients who do more than that. I have a lot of clients who do less than that. But I think the idea is like by the time your one thing is out, you should be working on the next thing so that you can talk about that in your meeting. You should be ready to talk about it, have an idea of where it goes, who it would be right for, because you don't want to like you want that general meeting to be fruitful. You want people to know because I think the biggest turnoff is, is if you're in a meeting, someone goes, "What's next?" And you go, "I don't know." Like that's kind of like dead in the water. So while I don't have like an exact number, I think you should constantly have something in some kind of stage of being written or developed.
And as you're developing with the changes in the industry, should writers write both features and TV? Where's the path right now? What is the balance of things?
Um, I would usually say write to whatever the story, whatever for, and I still believe that you should write to whatever the format works best for the story. Excuse me. I will say for more up and coming writers, I'm seeing more opportunity on the feature side than on the TV side because so like just based on how decisions are made on either side, I think TV, it's much more important like who's involved, what the track record of this person, of the people involved are, it's a big investment and people don't want to invest on an unknown. Whereas on the feature side, you can write an excellent script and be done, and that's enough. Right? Like once it's out of your hands, like maybe it'll get rewritten, maybe whatever. But at this point, still a sell in your book. It's still something that's been optioned or whatever. I there isn't like an immediate bias of this person's never done something before when they read a feature script like there is in a TV script. So I would say if you're an emerging writer, I would say if you have a story and a voice that works for the format, I would highly suggest having at least a feature.
If you do want to break into TV today, what, how?
What a
How?
question. Great. I wish I had the answer. Um, there's a couple ways still. I would say one is through fellowships. People still draw shows still heavily draw on fellowships because again, those salaries are subsidized, so it leaves more room in their budget, which is always a plus. So financial benefit of you doing a fellowship if you apply. And then I would say getting a support staff role, a writer's assistant, script coordinator, writer's PA, and kind of work your way up. I rep a client who was promoted after being the showrunner's assistant, and now she's a staff writer on a show. This happens um, still frequently
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it's really who does the showrunner know. And then outside of that, it's just digging into those relationships that you've been building. Just seeing who you have in common with the showrunner, see who can give you a solid recommendation because that's what they're pulling from these days. These days, a showrunner has their pick of people, and it's all people that they know or have people that they can vouch for. Very rarely are the studio network pushing people onto them unless it's like for a specific need. But for the most part, it's all through the relationships and and then the network either approves or not, but for the most part, they're going to approve it. So
Now, you mentioned an attorney earlier. When is the right time for a writer to bring an attorney onto their team?
when you have any kind of legal matter, when you have a deal on the table, like sometimes I'll have writers like reach out to me because they have a deal on the table and they think they need a manager. And I tell them take their time with the manager, just find you an attorney. Um, Sometimes it depends on the attorney. Some attorneys are interested in developing talent in terms of like getting in there early and they recommend them to managers like myself. But I would say any kind of legal matter you want to cover, you're behind. So like if you have an option on if someone wants to option something, if someone is interested in the rights to something you've done, if someone wants to have you do a podcast, like any kind of format of any work on the table, if there is either a question of money or rights involved, I would say get an attorney. It is worth that 5% to make sure you're covered because, a lot of times the issues down the line aren't necessarily monetary, but like say you work on a project that gets picked up and adapted into a movie. Do you have rights on that movie early on? I don't know, and so that attorneys are really great at thinking creatively. If there's not a lot of money on the table, they can figure out some other ways for you to be compensated. They're just really great to work with because they think of things that we will never think of in any case.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, Now I know a lot of writers kind of here talk about the industry and the challenges in the industry and how the industry has changed. What's your take about where we are in the industry in the last 6 years that we've been through since
Oh
really
God.
writers fired agents? Where are we now? Where do you see
Yeah.
it going?
Um, I think we're still in a time of like course correction and transition. I think we had peak TV. I think this downswing was going to happen regardless of strikes. It may have been exacerbated or, hurried faster, but I think we were going to realize not everything was sustainable. So I think there is some course correction in terms of people realizing that they need, 20 episodes of TV or that they need multiple seasons of something to come out once every year. So there's a lot of that going on. I have a big question mark in terms of some stuff. Honestly, I don't know how like some of these mergers are going to pan out or some of these other things are going to pan out. So there's still a big question mark for me, but I guess anecdotally, like the people who traditionally work, still find work. And like I said, the people who need to break in need to be a little bit more creative in terms of how they do it. And there are people who are still looking out there looking for emerging voices. But it's helping them in a way that feels sellable for them because everyone is scared. Everyone's job is on the line. An exec you talk one week is gone, the next, sadly. So to make their job easier, it's like figuring out what works the best way, for them to tell their story. Yeah, so I don't know. It's still it's very challenging. Like the industry is still very challenging. It's still tough to see friends lose their jobs weekly. But I do feel hopeful in that like entertainment's not going anywhere. Like people still need to see stuff and watch stuff. And um, so that I guess that is the comfort is that there's always going to be a need for it, and there's always and it might look different, but I guess being as adaptable as you can is probably the best way, and being as prolific as you can is probably the best thing to do.
So speaking of being prolific, I had a conversation or an email conversation with somebody earlier this week who was kind of pushing back on the idea on starting new work. This is a writer that's had a little bit of success in the industry, but effectively said, well, why am I writing? Why am I doing all this work for free?
Hmm.
And it's their own work. It's
Yeah.
speculative work. It's not something they're doing on assignment.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on the writer's need to continue to generate new material, be it screenplays, pilots, or later in their career pitches?
Hmm. Um, I think sitting and waiting for a job to come to you is probably the easiest way to never work. Like I think I'm telling people for the most part is like you need to write your way into a job. Like you need to create the job for yourself. Just like as a manager, I'm very entrepreneurial. Like everyone, the people who I think are going to last are the people who are very entrepreneurial, and that includes backing things, in my opinion. I have gotten pushback from writers too on this, um, but at the end of the day, a spec is something you control, that you own, this is the only thing that you have complete say over, right? Like if you do an OWA, if you get staffed, you don't have any rights to that. That can, even if you sell a pitch, like you don't have any rights to the pitch once you sell it. So writing something on spec is the best way to have something that you can dictate especially in a time where we have so little control over what's happening to us and um how we can generate, jobs. Like I think creating something that you can say, I want this person involved. I don't want this person involved. I want to direct it myself. I don't, anything like that, like I think puts you in the greatest position of power. And I think that is very wise these days. I think probably the best kind of career is one that has a mix of both. But like it's just the competition is bananas in terms of like stuff out. So many people are out of work that like say you're going up for an OWA, you're going to be going up against showrunners. Like it's who've worked before. So I think creating something of your own makes you your own boss. And I'm always probing, obviously probing your own boss of something. And um, I just think it's a wise move to do, but I definitely get the people who are tired of being burned off of free work. I get that sentiment for sure.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you work with writer directors and just spoke again about, putting yourself up as director or something. How is it different building a career for a writer director versus somebody who's just a writer?
I would say it's harder. It's definitely more expensive to build your career as a director, right? Like as a writer, you buy some screenwriting software and you're a writer. Um, so like the barrier to entry is a little bit different than a filmmaker who needs to source some money for some tape because everything you do you get because you've proven that you can do that job. So you write a script, you've proven you can write a script. So to prove that you can direct, you need to direct. And so you need to either find those opportunities where you can get those kind of first shorts or a music video or commercial or something like that. And sometimes it is money out of pocket. Sometimes it's finding an investor, doing GoFundMe or whatever. It's just, but as you can see, that's a lot more work than writing a
Writing.
script on
Yeah.
your on your laptop. So that's definitely tough. And then again, just in general, like a script is this like it's already done. It's a proven entity. The filmmaker, like hiring a filmmaker is like in theory you're going to direct this, right? And so that's just always such a risky buy as opposed to a already completed script. So again, it's finding those champions who champion up and coming filmmakers. Um, writing's the best way to direct something is to write it yourself because no one has to hire you to direct your own thing. So like if you have a script and someone else tries to put a different director on it, you can take it away from them. And that's also the benefit of speccing something because you own that script and you can say, no, I will only sell this to you if you attach me to direct it. Um, so yeah, I think probably that's a kind of clear idea and kind of the difference of the two.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, a lot of writers, emerging writers, as they start to look around for managers, have different ideas about,
Mhm,
I want to be in a big firm, I want to be in a boutique. You've
mhm,
had the privilege of having your own thing
mhm,
with a partner, as well as now at Heroes and Villains, previously at Circle. What's the difference with for writers looking for representation? What would be the difference for them working with a smaller
mhm.
entity versus a bigger shop?
I would say these days, especially on the management side, there isn't too much of a difference. My philosophy, it's always about the individual that you're working with. These days, I like we all have access to the same information. Like I have this, like I will say, since moving from my own thing to Heroes, there is a little bit of a wall broken down for me in that, like, I'm working at a place that already has a reputation, so I get calls returned faster because they know my colleagues. If I don't cover someone else, I have a colleague who covers that, so it's a little bit less work. But otherwise, I would say when I was at First Friday, like I'm on the same tracking boards then that I am on now in terms of like on big email lists with other managers. So we all have the same information. Um, as a two-person company, I was able to build those relationships on my own. So maybe they took a little bit more time to foster. It wasn't an immediate like whatever return call, but eventually once people got to know me and my taste and who I am, like I still have those same relationships. Um, so I would say for the most part, like my advice is always go for I even say this for the agency side too. It's like go for the person that you think gets you and that you can see being in this kind of relationship with. People change, as obviously as evidenced by me, people change their company circumstances all the time. So I like you're getting in bed with a person, not a company, is my opinion. That said, like research is great. Like check out the company, see who they do rep, what space do they rep other people like successfully in the space that you work in. So that's always a good factor as well. So I'm not saying like don't do your research if it's the same type of person at two different companies, like research the companies. Um, but yeah, I think for me, I've always felt like it was like it's really about the person that you're working with. Do you have that level of trust that they'll represent you correctly and adequately?
Very wise. Um, you've given me a ton. So, last question.
Okay.
Any advice for emerging writers who are trying to break in?
I would say, first of all, realize it's hard for everyone right now. It's not like the difficulty, it's always difficult to break in, but like now it's difficult for people who've already broken in. So my point being like don't be discouraged. It's not a result of anything you've done or who you are or your talent. It's not a statement on your talent. It's really just as an industry itself, we're just going through a tough time. So still trust yourself, trust your voice. If this is what you really want to do, and make sure it's something you really want to do because it's so hard. But if it's something that you really want to do and determined to do, don't let the fact that we're in a tough moment discourage you. And then the stuff, like I said in the beginning, like just really focus on your own lane and what you do. Don't like comparison is a thief of joy. So like you'll see other friends get in different spots. Don't compare yourself to them. That's going to kneecap you. Um, and yeah, just like keep like stay like oh, I would say just keep that passion that you have. Remember why you're doing it. Go see movies that inspire you. Rewatch stuff that inspires you. Um, just like keep like do your best not to get kind of like jaded by the rejection. Don't get jaded by what's going like just keep that fresh passion as a fan. Like we're all in this industry because we're fans of it. And that is like whenever you're kind of like lost, like you can use that as kind of your North Star.
I love all of that. Thank you so much for taking the time and doing this with me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having
Really
me.
appreciate you being here. And to everybody who's watching, hope you enjoyed it.
Yay.